We come today to the day we know as Good Friday. Now, why is it called good when it is a day on which we commemorate the crucifixion and death of Jesus Christ? It is because Easter is coming. For those who are followers of Christ, we know that the suffering and death of Jesus, as terrible as it was fulfillment of God's plan to provide for your salvation and my salvation from sin. Jesus willingly suffered and died as the ultimate once and for all sacrifice for the garbage in your life and the garbage in my life. After Pilate delivered him to be crucified, Jesus began the walk to the site of his execution. He had become so weakened by the scourging he'd received that he was unable to carry the crossbeam very far. Impatient, the Romans pressed a man named Simon of Cyrene to carry the beam through the streets of Jerusalem. What awaited Jesus was the most painful death imaginable. The pain of crucifixion was so intense that the Romans, who had perfected it as a means of torture, had to create a new word, excruciating. Perhaps the best word to describe it. Jesus would have been stripped naked, then nailed to the cross with thick spikes at least 5 inches long. Then the cross lifted into place to make his suffering a humiliating public spectacle. The gospel accounts of the crucifixion of Jesus are simple and straightforward. We know that death was usually due to exposure, blood loss, dehydration, and perhaps most of all, asphyxia. As Jesus endured the agony, he also endured the jeers of those who shouted, "He saved others, but himself he could not save." And in a parallel word, that was literally true. In order to save others, he could not save himself. And these bystanders failed to understand that Jesus could not have accomplished his mission on this earth if he had bypassed that horrendous, deadly cross. The gospel records 7 words that Jesus uttered from the cross. Words of forgiveness, salvation, and affection. A word of dereliction as he experienced the pain of knowing that his sins he bore on our behalf has caused God to turn his back on his son. Before the final word of surrender and death, Jesus uttered the words, "It is finished," the word tetelestai. It is an accounting term that means paid in full. By his death, Jesus declared the debt of sin canceled in everybody who receives him. Nothing else was required. The work of Jesus had come into the world was now complete. Why did Jesus die? In a practical sense, he died because of the hatred of the Jewish leaders and the moral cowardice of Pilate. But more importantly, he died to deal with your sin and my sin and the rebellion of the human heart, the selfishness in you and the selfishness in me. It was his love for us that compelled him to die on your behalf and my behalf. In short, why did he die? Look in the mirror. He died for you. He died for me. He paid the price. Tetelestai. Over. Saved. Right with God. Right with yourself. Right with your fellow man. That's what happened. That's what took place on the cross.